Everybody, it's great to have you join me again today. We've been talking about spiritual warfare the last few days, and it's because, look, life is hard, but it's not hard just because you're running through some difficult situations, but you have an enemy, and he is planning your demise. His name is Satan. He's an evil spirit, and Jesus talked about him a lot. He's real, and that's why God gave you and I his armor to be able to defeat him and overcome him. We are on the winning team, but you got to put the armor on. But do you know what he says right after he talks about all the different pieces of the armor? He says that listen to this. This is Ephesians 6:18. With all prayer and petition, pray with specific requests at all times, on every occasion, and in every season, in the Spirit, with this in view. Stay alert with all perseverance and petition, interceding in prayer for all of God's people. Pray with all kinds of prayer. Prayer's like going to the gas station and filling up your tank. It's like putting on an oxygen mask when you're high altitude, or when you're in the depths of the ocean and the waves are just overwhelming you, and you got to have that oxygen, or a hot air balloon. You know, they're blowing that heat up into that hot air balloon to get it off the ground, or your phone when it's on 1%, you got to plug it in. I mean, you can't survive without prayer. I mean, are you living like on an empty tank and just trying to make it home without running out of gas? I've done that before, and guess what? I didn't make it home. And so then, you know, rather than just inconveniencing myself a little bit to go to the gas station and put gas in, you stare at that gauge, you're like, I think I can make it, I think I can make it. And then you inconvenience everybody else, like I did my wife, who has to come and get you and rescue you, right? Or like my brother, who almost died when we were scuba diving because his oxygen mask, or he ran out of oxygen, and the instructor had to put his mask on him and share it all the way up to the surface and saved his life. That's what it's like when you don't pray and you're depending on everybody else praying for you. You know, they're having to save your life. So now a lot of people say, gosh, you know, I pray for about a minute and then I don't know what to pray for next. I run out of, well, Paul said praying with all kinds of prayer. When you realize there's all kinds of prayers, it'll completely change your prayer life. So I'm going to hit you with a few of them today, and I want to make these videos short, so I'm going to move kind of quickly, all right? So the first one is just conversational prayer, and that's the one we all love. It's just talking to a friend. That's what the Psalms are full of, these, you know, just pouring out your heart to God. Tell him what you're angry about, what you're lustful about, what you're jealous about, what you're disappointed in, what your desires are, your hopes, you know. I mean, just, it's not like God's going to find out about them when you tell him. He already knows what's in your heart. But when you process them out with him, it's good for your soul and it's good for your relationship with God. And then there is the prayer of intercession. This is you holding on to Jesus' hand and holding on to your friend's hand, or your family's hand, or the president's hand, or our country's hand, or your church's hand, or your pastor's hand. And you are the link between heaven and earth. And you are releasing heaven on earth. You're the friend that's on Luke chapter 11, banging on the door of another friend, trying to get bread from one friend to be able to give enough to another friend. That's what intercession is. And you could be praying, you could be interceding for people all day long. That's why Paul says praying always. Then there's the prayer of agreement. Jesus said, where two or more of you on earth agree, touching anything, my Father will do it. You see, one can put 1,000 to flight, two can put 10,000 to flight. So that prayer of agreement, call a prayer partner and pray over things. And if you're not getting answers to prayer, couple up with somebody. There's more faith released when you do that. Then there's personal requests. You know, that's you praying for yourself. Look, we're all pretty self-absorbed. We're needy. And when you realize that God really cares about every detail of your life, and if you began praying about every detail of your life, well, you'd be praying forever. So let God know your personal needs and desires. He loves that. Then there's prayers for deliverance. I mean, Jesus said in the daily prayer, he said, pray to say, God, lead us away from temptation and deliver us from the evil one. Now, that's a daily prayer. Jesus said so. And if it wasn't necessary, he wouldn't have put it in there. I mean, the Psalms are also full of those prayers of deliverance. They're just like, help! You know, those are the best kinds of prayers. Then there's praying scripture. God tells us to put us in remembrance of his word. It's not like he forgot what he said. But when you send scriptures of the pipeline of prayer to heaven, God hears them and it activates his integrity, and he responds, because he says in Isaiah 55 that his word will not return to him void. So you want to pray scripture. There's also prayers of consecration. That is you dedicating yourself to God. So I hope knowing how many different kinds of prayer there are will inspire you to pray more often and increase your prayer life. And this last thing Paul says, right after he says praying always with all kinds of prayer, he says, pray for me, that I may speak boldly as I ought to speak, and so doors of opportunity for the gospel will open. I want you to know that I know that when I'm speaking and preaching boldly, it's not because of my personality or my human energy. I know it's the grace of God that has been given to me by your prayers. So please keep praying for me every day that I may speak boldly and preach confidently as I should. Okay? Now, I'm going to have a couple questions that we close out. Do you get lost in prayer? Do you run out of things to pray about? How has this short teaching expanded your understanding of prayer? Secondly, what kind of prayer from that list we went over do you connect with most, and why? And thirdly, what kinds of prayers do you think that you can grow in? All right, I'd love to hear your comments at the bottom of this video, and I'll see you tomorrow.